Welcome to the Crawcast. I'm your host, George Krawczak, and today I'm going to rank every single WrestleMania 41 match from worst to best. And if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button like it owes you money. Now let's get started. So, at number 14, I have Gunther versus Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship. Overall, this match it felt like it wasn't that good. It was slow, it was plodding, it really just never got going, it felt like. And overall, it was just really disappointing. It felt like it didn't match their characters either. Like, the whole goal of this match, it felt like, was to get the whole crowd to yeet in unison with Jey Uso, and they basically just never did that. And then also, just Gunther's character was just weird, because he's always been the tough guy, never scared to fight anyone, always, wants to be the best. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of this match, he just leaves. He takes the title and is about to leave because he's scared of Jey Uso. And then he tries to cheat to win by hitting Jey Uso with the title. It felt very out of character to Gunther. And I'm a little on the fence about the finish because on one hand, he tapped out insanely early, which does put over how strong his submission is. But on the other, it just felt like he should have kind of passed out, more like. And it also felt like a little bit weird because I don't know if they're playing too much to an online audience or not, but it was like everyone was complaining that Jey Uso only does a couple of moves, which I think is true. He does need to expand his moveset. But when people complain he doesn't do enough moves, I don't think they mean copy his opponent's moves, because he basically did like half of Gunther's moveset during this match. And so it really felt like the crowd wasn't into this match. It really wasn't that good, and just overall not that great of a match. The next match is the War Raiders versus the New Day for the Raw Tag Team Championships. Overall, I thought this match was a little bit slow, and it felt like it was going in like slow motion sometimes because the people were missing their spots and stuff like that. But I didn't think it was that bad of a match, honestly. I thought it was more just didn't really fit because everyone wants a SmackDown Tag Team TLC match to be on this card. And I think people were angry that this match was kind of thrown together last minute, and it kind of showed where this really felt like a Raw match where it was just fine. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. It just felt like an average, not WrestleMania match, and the crowd was completely dead during this. The crowd did not like this or were interested in this at all. Because I think, again, when you give people the option of a SmackDown TLC match between the Motor City Machine Guns, uh, uh, DIY, and the Street Profits, then I think everyone's more interested in that than this. But overall, I thought it was a pretty decent match. They're finally capitalizing on the New Day be turning heel, even though they turned heel like 4 months ago and did nothing since. But again, I didn't think it was that bad of a match. I just thought it was kind of more average. The next match at number 12 is Randy Orton versus Joe Hendry. I actually thought this was a pretty good match. It was really cool seeing Joe Hendry. It was pretty funny because, like, I always thought it was weird. How do they, like, equal the conundrum that they don't want Randy Orton to lose, but if you have a huge returning star like a Rusev or someone else, or maybe even Nick Aldis, you can't have them lose either. So this was just a glorified squash match. Again, it was really cool to see Joe Hendry. It was cool seeing the RKO out of nowhere because no one saw it coming if you were watching the TV, because Joe Hendry didn't look at Randy Orton at all. He had his face at the camera. And so overall, I thought that was really good. And it was really funny seeing Randy Orton do the Joe Hendry little pose at the end. Again, it was just a squash match. Nothing exciting, nothing interesting, but overall, not too bad. It was kind of cool to see. At number 11, I have Cody Rhodes versus John Cena for the WWE Championship. This was a bad match, and I think WWE kind of screwed up where they were kind of playing 4D chess with this match, and they really didn't need to. Because John Cena's whole thing now is he says, I want to ruin wrestling. So, how he ruins wrestling is having boring matches. But here's the problem. You can't have boring matches because you need to sell the product. People are entertained by good matches. You can't just say, okay, this guy, because we want you to boo him, is going to have horrible matches. It just doesn't work that way, where you need exciting matches in the product. and I just don't think this works at all. And then Travis Scott just also didn't work for me, where like I I don't have an issue with celebrity involvement. I actually think celebrity involvement is pretty decent because it increases eyes on the product, and you know, if there's potentially Travis Scott fans out there, then they can go and watch WrestleMania for him. But the big issue is I don't like them being in main event storylines, and I don't like celebrities being in title storylines. Just because I feel like that devalues both the main event and the title. And it really felt like Travis Scott made no sense because again, we have not touched on The Rock or Travis Scott since Elimination Chamber. So they basically have been out of the story that we've been telling for the past was it 5 weeks since Elimination Chamber? So it doesn't really make a lot of sense that now all of a sudden they're going to show up because they haven't been part of any Raw segments. Travis Scott, I don't even think his name has been even brought up in any of the Raw segments. I know The Rock's name has been brought up twice, but Travis Scott's name hasn't been brought up. And it just leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth when you say, okay, John Cena broke Ric Flair's record, and Cody Rhodes' over a year-long title reign ended because a random rapper got involved. Again, I think this match was boring. The crowd were a little bit into it at the end. That's why it's a little bit higher up because, quite frankly, in terms of match quality, I think this is probably the worst match on the show. But the crowd are pretty into it. That's why it's a little bit higher up on the list. But again, and also no Rock appearance. That was the big thing because you can't have Travis Scott without The Rock because so again, you had your little team of The Rock, Travis Scott, and John Cena. And then, since The Rock and Travis Scott don't show up, we're basically transitioning out of that being like, okay, no, John Cena didn't turn heel because he made some sort of deal with The Rock. He turned heel because he hates the fans that because they booed him in his like initial kind of 10-year run. And it's like, okay, so issue with the fans, nothing to do with The Rock. We're going to pretend that basically never happened. And then all of a sudden, now at WrestleMania, we're circling back to, oh, wait, maybe he did sell something to The Rock and made some agreement to The Rock to turn heel. But The Rock's not there. It feels like if you're never going to use The Rock to follow up on the storyline, The Rock should have never been involved in the first place. Like, it felt like they just kind of wanted to create a big moment for Elimination Chamber and then really didn't have a plan afterwards because I saw somewhere that the original plan was for him to turn heel at Mania and not at Elimination Chamber. Like, it kind of reminds me of last year, where, at least last year when The Rock inserted himself into the Cody Roman storyline, it didn't really make a lot of sense, but at least he was involved in terms of, you know, trying to screw over Cody, and at least he had a match, whereas, like, Travis Scott was involved and basically really didn't do much except for interfering, and he's a celebrity, so I don't even think he should count. And then The Rock literally had zero involvement. So again, the match wasn't good, the story wasn't good. Yeah, and in terms of match quality, it should have been bottom of the list, but the crowd were into it. That's why I put it a little bit up. At number 10, I have Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez versus Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria for the Women's Tag Team Championships. Overall, I thought this was a pretty decent match. It was a little bit by the numbers because everyone was just waiting for Becky Lynch to go in and win the match, and that's kind of what basically everyone was waiting for. It was just an average match like that you could see on Raw or SmackDown or something. It is very curious to me that how this is going to work because Becky Lynch did say in the post show press conference that she is going to be full time, and I just don't like Lyra Valkyria being the both the women's tag team champion and the Intercontinental Champion because obviously she can't defend both belts on the same show, and it feels like one of them is going to be at least a little bit devalued. Like on this show, it felt like her Intercontinental Championship was devalued because she wasn't defending it, and it felt like a less important title than the women's tag champions, which doesn't make sense to me because singles belts are always more important than tag belts, and it feels like if you want to get over a tag or a singles belt, especially a new one just introduced, you're going to want to have it at Mania. So this was it wasn't a bad match. It just was a bit of a by the numbers, you know, kind of exactly what you'd expect in a short tag team match that felt like, hey, let's just get people on the card. At number 9, I have AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. I thought match was just okay. Like, I think the expectations were definitely super high for this match. I seriously thought this was going to be match of the night because Logan Paul's a really great wrestler and AJ Styles has been a really great wrestler. and I just expected this to be such an amazing match. And honestly, it just felt average. AJ Styles felt slow at times. There was no real great spots. Like when Logan Paul lost the United States Championship to LA Knight, there was that amazing like springboard backflip into LA Knight. There was no spots like that. There really wasn't much of a story. Karrion Kross kind of got involved because they're like Logan's not a real wrestler, which because he's a celebrity, which is true. I do think he is like he's in a weird spot where I think he's like half wrestler, half celebrity because clearly he started out as celebrity, but he's wrestled enough where it's like a little bit of a wrestler, but still I think I'd consider him a celebrity, and I don't necessarily like celebrities too much, although I don't have an issue with that. Kind of like what I said of Travis Scott, just no titles, no main events. But anyways, so I just expected this to be a really great match, and it was just average. Like there was nothing real special, nothing disappointing, nothing great. Just just an average match. And the story of Karrion Kross, I thought that could have been interesting if either like you can't really have AJ Styles turn heel because he was already a heel and nobody booed him because everyone likes AJ Styles so much. But again, I just thought this was kind of an average match. I was expecting way more out of it, and a little disappointing in that. At number 8, I have LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu. This match was a pretty good match. The one thing that bothers me about it is they had an amazing spot where Jacob Fatu did a moonsault into the BFT, and that should have been the finish right there. That was by far the greatest spot of the match. It would have been an amazing finish, and it kind of doesn't mean much because LA Knight ended up losing. I agree with Jacob Fatu should have won. I think he's definitely one of the future stars of this company. But it just feels a little unfortunate because the biggest highlight of the match kind of doesn't mean anything. And again, it's weird because Jacob Fatu should have won, but it's just that you had that amazing spot and it feels like it went to waste. And it'll be interesting because this will probably start the dissension of the bloodline where, Solo and Jacob will feud over the US title. And LA Knight really felt like he hasn't done anything since he won it back from Shinsuke. And overall, it was a fine match, pretty good. That one spot was amazing, didn't mean much afterwards, but overall, it was a pretty decent match. At number 7, I have Rey Fenix versus El Grande Americano. This was a really good match. Like, El Grande Americano hit an insane backwards, like 450 senton on Rey Fenix. This was a really good match. Both these guys are excellent workers. El Grande Americano is probably the best luchador in WWE, and these guys are just really, really great. This was a great match. It was interesting because like I was expecting maybe an unmasking or something like that, but obviously that didn't happen. But overall, this was just a really great match, and I think it's really impressive what both Rey Fenix and El Grande Americano both did. It kind of sucks that Rey Fenix lost so early in his like WWE career because it felt like he could have kept a little bit of an undefeated streak and kind of not wasted his first loss at just kind of like a bit of a mid card WrestleMania match. But this was a really really solid match, and honestly, I they only win I think like 9 minutes, and I think if you give them extra time, like give them 15 20 minutes, I think they could have made it even better. This again, Rey Fenix really great, El Grande Americano really great. Just this was a really enjoyable match. And I think it's good to keep the heel run going of El Grande Americano, and then maybe unmask him at SummerSlam or a little bit later on. But overall, this was an excellent, excellent match between two great workers. At number 6, I have Jade Cargill versus Naomi. This was unexpectedly a really great match. Like, Naomi's a total pro, her heel work has been great, and these two just mesh greatly, where you have Jade's power game, and then you have Naomi's kind of great selling and springboard ability. It kind of reminds me a lot of, like, Dolph Ziggler, where if you put Dolph Ziggler in a match with basically anyone who's moderately strong, it's gonna look like a great match. And it kind of sucks that Naomi had to lose, although it does make sense. And it's going to be interesting because I thought Jade Cargill and Bianca were going to feud next, and Bianca would win the title, but maybe Bianca and Jade still feud, it's just not for the title. But overall, I thought this was just an excellent match, and definitely, like, I don't want to say the most underrated match because it was really good, but, like, I wasn't expecting it to be that good. And Naomi's great. Jade definitely held her own and showed why she's going to be the next top women's champion. And there was like a powerbomb spot where it just looked like she killed Naomi, and it looked a little bit dangerous, a little bit bad, but like bad in a good way. And overall, this was just a really solid match. And Jade's power was really good. There was a spot where Naomi looked like for a diving neck breaker, and Jade caught her and hit her with a jackhammer, and it was just really good, really solid. At number 5, I have Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre. I thought this match was pretty good. I was expecting a little bit more. I thought they could have been a little bit more violent, but overall, this was a really great match. A lot of sick chair shots to Drew McIntyre's back from Damian Priest. Damian Priest went through 2 tables from the outside. I thought that was just okay, but the big spot was the ending. The Claymore kind of threw, well, a chair was set up in the corner and like really through Damian Priest's head. That was excellent, excellent, excellent. And I don't know if there's really room for Drew McIntyre in the title scene now because you got like Cena and you got Seth and you got Jey Uso. Even though I think Jey Uso's reign is gonna last like a day to maybe 2 months max. And just overall, this was a solid match. It was a good hardcore match. I think that's missing. Everyone likes hardcore matches of spots and ladder matches, and being one of the only stipulation matches, this might have been the only stipulation match. This was a really solid showing for both men and really good. At number 4, I have Braun Breaker versus Penta versus Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental Championship. Braun Breaker was just great in this. He showed his power, he showed his athleticism, he was flying out of nowhere, really just killing dudes. He speared Carlito through the table. He um, was doing suplexes. He was just on fire during this match. It felt like Penta was a little bit wasted. I feel like he didn't really have that much involvement. But the great ending of Dominic Mysterio finally getting his well-deserved title win. I thought this came a little bit too late because he was at his hottest probably like a year and a half ago. But finally, Dom got his title win. So we'll see what they do with it. The thing that I feel like he needs to go out on his own. He needs to stop being with the Judgment Day. He needs to stop being with Liv Morgan. He just needs to go on his own. The Judgment Day should have died like a year and a half ago, and it keeps limping on for some reason. And so this again, this match was pretty good. It just had a great finish, and that's why it's number 4. And the 4 workers involved, I feel like it could have been a little bit better, but this was just a really, really great match. That's why it's at my number 4. At number 3, I have Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair for the women's WWE Championship. I thought this was a really good match. I get points that are a little bit sloppy, and I agree, but this just felt like it had a great story, great feud going into it with a great match. Tiffany Stratton was definitely the MVP. It seemed like Charlotte Flair struggled a little bit, but I get it when you're coming back from a terrible, I think, ACL injury. It feels like you gotta change your style a little bit. So Charlotte was a little bit slow, but Tiffany was so athletic, so strong. She really, I felt like, carried this to a great match. And I felt like the story and these two feuding was just a really good job on both women. And I love the psychology of both attacking the knee because you're hitting Tiffany's knee to set her up for the figure 8, and then attacking Charlotte's knee because she just got it repaired from her injury. And just overall, this was a really good match. I get it, some people didn't like it because in spots they were a bit sloppy, and I agree. I agree, some spots were a little bit sloppy, but I felt like the non-sloppy moments really made up for it, and this was just a really good, solid match. At number 2, I have Io Sky versus Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Heavyweight Championship. This was a really, really great match. I thought everyone worked so well together. You have Bianca playing up her power game. You have Rhea playing up her power game, and then Io Sky with her athleticism. Honestly, I think Io Sky is the best women's wrestler in WWE right now. She is just so good. And this match had a lot of great triple threat spots and kind of 3-way spots. The ending was really good with the moonsault after breaking up the pin. And these 3 just really worked well together. I do think it would have been a little bit better if Bianca won, just because even though I love Io Sky and I think she's so great, it just starting to feel like there's no story for her, and she's a transitional champion in terms of she's just kind of thrown in there. It really doesn't make sense why she's there. She didn't really earn an opportunity. I guess she got screwed out of the chamber, so that's why she got an opportunity, but she kind of feels more like she's just there, and the other two women are fighting for the title, but this was just an excellent, excellent triple threat match. Again, I think it does rival the number one spot, which is at number one is Roman Reigns versus CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. The story these three had was amazing. The psychology of, all three of them feuding together. I liked Roman's part where, Seth tried to team up with him to reminisce about the Shield days, and Roman's just like, no, I don't like you. I'm powerbombing you and Punk through a table. And the spot where all three of them hit their finishers was really great, where uh, Punk hit the GTS on Rollins, and then Roman speared Punk, and Rollins kind of like fell to the ropes and went back and hit the stomp on Roman. The ending I thought wasn't that great because, like, as soon as Paul Heyman climbed into the ring, you're like, okay, he's turning on Punk and he's turning on Roman and he's siding with Seth, 100%. So I thought that was a little bit messy, but overall, it was a great match, and I get it. It was a little bit like your standard three-way where you throw a guy out, two fight, throw a guy out, two fight. But I also like the psychology of it, where it's like, I believe Seth hit a pedigree on Roman, and then he had to like push Punk out of the ring, and then go back and like, oh, that 1 second took him too long, and then the brawling in the crowd, and this was just a really, really great match. I think it would have been a little bit better if there's actual stakes involved, like if it was for a title or something, but overall, this is a really great match. And I felt like the top two matches were the best of Mania, and then the rest was just kind of mid, where like there wasn't an actual horrible match, but there was only two really great matches. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this type of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button like it owes you money, and I'll see you on the next one.